The first rule of night shift at St. Agatha Memorial Hospital: never go to the basement. Nurse Clara Voss learned this her third night on the job, when the elevator shuddered to a stop between floors, trapping her in pitch-black silence. Over the hum of dead machinery, she heard it. A thin, wailing cry. A baby. But St. Agatha hadn't had a maternity ward since 1972. The sound followed her. It seeped through the vents above the nurse's station. A reedy sob that raised the hairs on Clara's neck. Her co-workers shrugged. "Pipes?" said Randy, the security guard, picking at his vending machine sandwich. "Or rats? That basement's older than your grandma's Bible." But Clara knew the whimper of a newborn. She'd spent 2 years in neonatal before transferring here. This cry was hungry. At 3:17 a.m., she snapped. The basement door groaned like a wounded thing, its hinges caked with decades of paint. Her flashlight beam carved through dust motes, landing on a rusted sign. Morgue. The crying swelled, echoing off cracked tiles. Room B12 was padlocked. Clara's lockpick kit, a relic from her rebellious teens, jittered in her hands. Inside, the air smelled of sour milk and formaldehyde. An incubator sat in the center, draped in a yellowed sheet. She tugged it off. The glass was smeared with tiny handprints. "They shut the nursery after the scandal," said Mrs. Doyle, the day shift clerk. Her voice lowered as she handed Clara a 1971 staff directory. Page 23 was torn out. Page 23 was torn out. Nurse Lillian Voss, no relation. Honey. Stole 6 infants. Sold into couples who couldn't, you know. Clara's throat tightened. Voss, her mother's maiden name. They caught her. Mrs. Doyle added, but one baby vanished. Little girl. They say Lillian hid her somewhere in the hospital before she... A shrug. Well, bad blood. That night, Clara dreamt of fingers tapping Morse code on glass. The crying grew louder. Closer. Clara followed it to the morgue's autopsy suite. Freezer drawers lined the wall, their handles crusted with ice. Drawer #7 stuck out an inch. Inside, she found a file folder frozen to the steel. The top document was a birth certificate. Female infant due. Time of death, 12:04 a.m., November 1st, 1971. Cause of death blank. Paper clipped to it was a photo of Nurse Lillian. Her cheekbones, her eyes holding a swaddled newborn. The freezer door slammed shut. Static crackled over the intercom. Then, a lullaby. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Clara sprinted upstairs, the song twisting into laughter. The nursery door, previously bricked over, now stood ajar, light spilling onto the hallway. Inside, the incubator hummed, warm and alive. Inside, the incubator hummed, warm and alive. A heartbeat flickered on its phantom monitor. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. The voice came from behind her. Clara turned. Nurse Lillian's uniform was stained with bile and blood, her face a mottled blue. She cradled the bundle of rags that squirmed and wailed. "You took your time, Clara," she crooned. "But you're home now." They found Clara at dawn, curled in the incubator, her scrubs damp with amniotic fluid that reeked of rot. She babbled about, the baby in the walls, and clawed at her ears until they bled. Administration blamed stress, gave her a week's leave. But when the demolition crew tore down St. Agatha's East Wing last fall, they discovered a tiny skeleton inside the ventilation shaft. Its skull rested on a nurse's cap, the name tag still legible. L. Voss Clara visits the grave every Sunday. She brings a stuffed mockingbird and sings the lullaby until her voice cracks. Sometimes, when the wind shifts, the grass beneath her knees whispers back, The new nurse on floor 3 called security last week. There's a baby crying in the walls, she insisted. Randy laughed. Pipes, he said. But when he checked the basement camera feed later, he saw it. A woman in a vintage nurse's uniform, rocking an empty incubator, humming. The timestamp read 12:04 a.m. The infant's file now lists a new cause of death: hunger. Working the night shift at a gas station is a special kind of isolation. It's just you, the glow of the flickering overhead lights, and the occasional trucker stopping by for coffee strong enough to keep them awake. Most nights, nothing happens. Just the rhythmic hum of the refrigerators and the dull static of the radio. But some nights, some shifts are different. Tonight was one of those nights. I was halfway through a dry microwave sandwich when I saw him. A man, standing just beyond the reach of the station lights near the edge of the lot, shrouded in darkness. At first, I thought maybe he was waiting for a ride or just passing through. But there was something off about the way he stood there, motionless, rigid, watching me. Even though the distance made it impossible to see his face clearly, I knew he was looking directly at me. A slow unease crept up my spine. I tore my gaze away, telling myself I was being paranoid, that maybe he was just some drifter trying to stay out of the rain. But as the minutes passed, he never moved. Not a step, not a twitch, just stood there, watching. I tried to ignore him. I really did. Customers came and went. Truckers, late-night travelers, an old man buying cigarettes. None of them seemed to notice the figure in the distance. I wanted to tell someone, but what would I say? Hey, do you see that guy over there who hasn't moved in over an hour? I'd think I was crazy. By 3:00 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I reached for the landline behind the counter, my fingers hesitating before dialing the non-emergency police line. A dispatcher answered in a bored tone, likely exhausted from a long shift. Yeah, there's a man standing outside the gas station, I said, keeping my voice low, as if he could hear me through the glass. He's been there for hours, not moving, just watching. The dispatcher asked if he'd threatened me, if he had a weapon. I told her no, nothing like that. She sighed. We'll send someone to check it out. I thanked her and hung up. Outside, the man remained frozen in place. I waited. 15 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed across the rain-soaked pavement as a patrol car pulled up. Relief flooded through me. A uniformed officer stepped inside, brushing droplets from his shoulders. You, the one who called? I nodded. Yeah, he's... I turned to point outside, and my stomach dropped. The man was gone. The officer checked the perimeter, walked around the building, even looked at the security footage with me. Nothing. No man. No movement. Nothing but the empty lot and the steady drizzle of rain. I swallowed hard, trying to shake the creeping embarrassment building inside me. I swear, he was there, I muttered. The officer offered a tight-lipped smile. It's late. It's late. These shifts mess with your head. Probably just a trick of the light. I wanted to argue, but what could I say? He gave me a nod and left. I locked the doors, turned up the radio, focused on the mundane tasks of the night. Stocking shelves, wiping down the counter. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Really, really wrong. Then, just as I reached for the mop, a chill ran down my spine. That feeling, the overwhelming, suffocating sensation of being watched. I turned slowly and froze. Through the glass door, just inches from where I stood, he was back. This time, he was closer, no longer standing at the edge of the lot. He was right outside the gas station, right in front of the door. I staggered backward, my breath catching in my throat. He was still motionless, still staring. Only now, I could make out his features, pale, almost waxy skin, dark, sunken eyes, lips that barely curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. His clothes were wet from the rain, but he didn't shiver, didn't blink, didn't breathe. I grabbed the phone again, my hands shaking so bad I could barely press the buttons. The line rang once, then the power flickered. The lights dimmed for a second, buzzing loudly, and when they came back on, he was gone. I sprinted to the door, twisting the lock shut. My pulse thundered in my ears. I turned back to the counter, gasping for breath, trying to make sense of what was happening. Then my gaze dropped to the floor. My stomach lurched. Wet footprints, right outside the door. Fresh, leading up to where he had been standing. But there were no prints leading away. I never saw him leave. I needed proof. Hands still trembling, I rushed to the back office and rewound the security footage. I played it back. The parking lot. The lights flickering. The lights flickering. Me, standing behind the counter, looking terrified. And the door. No one was there. No man. No shadow. Nothing. But when I glanced back at the counter, my heart nearly stopped. The footprints. They were still there. I didn't move. Didn't clean up the footprints. Didn't open the door. I sat behind the counter, staring at the glass, waiting for the first light of dawn. When the sun finally rose, when my shift ended, and my replacement arrived, I ran out of there without saying a word. I quit the next day. Never went back. I moved 3 towns over. Took a job at a diner. Started fresh, but sometimes, when I'm out late, driving past empty gas stations, I slow down. I check the lot. And sometimes, just past the glow of the station lights, I see him. The mall was supposed to close for good at sunrise. Marcus Hale's final shift at Silver Pine Galleria started like every other. Flickering fluorescence, the hum of dead escalators, and the smell of pretzel grease gone rancid. By midnight, the security monitors began to glitch. Static bloomed across camera 12. The food court feed. Marcus slapped the CRT, his reflection fragmenting in the screen. When the image cleared, a hooded figure stood behind the pretzel kiosk, facing away. Marcus radioed maintenance. "Someone's on level 2, negative," crackled the reply. "All exits sealed." The figure turned. Its face was a blur of pixels, like a corrupted JPEG. Marcus spun around. The food court lay empty, chairs stacked on tables. A voice whispered through the PA system. "You're late. The glitches spread." Camera 5. The figure in Sears, dragging something heavy through housewares. Camera 9. The figure in the arcade, pressing skeletal hands against the glass. Camera 3. The figure in the security office doorway. Marcus' breath fogged the monitor. Behind him, the door creaked open. Cold air licked his neck. He drew his baton. The hallway stretched silent. Back in his chair, the monitors showed only static. Except camera 3, the hooded figure now sat at Marcus' desk, its gloved finger tracing the words "last shift" on his coffee cup. Marcus' flashlight beam trembled as he swept the mall. His footsteps echoed through the atrium, past shuttered stores with names like Sunset Video and Radio Shack, relics of the 90s. The air smelled of wet carpet and copper. Near Spencer's Gits, he found them. Footprints, Byra Shiles' eyes trading toward the basement service elevator. The prints glistened, wet and red. The elevator doors groaned open before he pressed the button. Inside, the floor was smeared with blood. The buttons lit up one by one. B22, B3, B4, though the mall only had one basement. The security office reeked of burnt plastic when he returned. The monitors flickered, showing disjointed clips. Marcus, age 12, riding the mall's carousel, closed since 3. Marcus last week, arguing with his ex-wife by the fountain. Marcus now, asleep at his desk. He wasn't asleep. The PA system crackled. "You should be quit sooner." A shadow moved in the corner. Marcus swung his baton. It struck the wall, dislodging a poster for the mall's 1997 grand opening. The date was circled in black ink. At 4:17 a.m., the power died. Emergency lights bathed the mall in corpse green. Marcus radio spat garbled voices. Found the kids, but the faces, always hungry. Don't look behind you. He ran to the exit. The doors were chained. His keys snapped in the lock. Behind him, the carousel creaked to life. Its calliope playing a warped rendition of Pop Goes the Weasel. The security tapes recovered by police showed Marcus laughing, weeping, and screaming at empty rooms. In the final clip, he stood in the food court, arms outstretched, as static poured from his mouth. The coroner noted the cause of death, exsanguination. But the odd detail was the other cuts, dozens precise, forming letters on his arms. Thank you for shopping at Silver Pine. The new guard quit after one night. The monitors, he told police, they keep showing a guy in an old security uniform, waving. The mall reopened last month. Shoppers complain about the PAW system. A man's voice, faint, begging. Let me out beneath the muzak. And once, a little girl told her mom she saw a shadow man by the carousel. His hood was down. He had no face. Silver Pine Galleria still stands off I-80 in Nevada. Locals whisper about the phantom of the mall, a figure tied to the unsolved disappearances of 3 teens in '97. The security booth remains empty, but if you visit at midnight, you'll see the monitors glow, and something watching back. The library at Langston University loomed like a tired giant. 6 floors of warped oak shelves and faded books. Steeped in the drone of flickering fluorescence, Mara Ellis, 32nd, had manned the night shift for 3 years. Alone with the steady tick of the wall clock and the occasional rustle of pages settling in the dark. Tonight, at 1 a.m., the stillness felt off, heavy with an unspoken weight that pressed against her temples. She was at the desk, sipping lukewarm coffee, when a faint whisper drifted from the archive wing. A soft, breathy hiss, like air slipping through clenched teeth. Mara set her mug down, the clink cutting through the quiet, and grabbed her flashlight. The archives were sealed after hours behind a steel gate, but the sound pulled her forward. She crossed the lobby, sneakers squeaking on the tile, and swept the beam over the gate, locked solid. Yet the whispers sharpened. Down here. Her keys jangled as she unlocked the gate, the metallic clang bouncing down the hall. The archive air hit her, dusty, tinged with a sour edge like old sweat. She weaved through the shelves, light darting, when it caught a thin crack in the wall, a seam she'd never noticed. Her fingers grazed it, and a panel clicked, swinging open. A hidden room gaped before her, a cramped space stinking of mildew and rust. Shelves sagged inside, piled with student ID cards. Hundreds, their edges brittle and yellowed. Mara plucked one up. Sarah J. Tillman, class of 9. Her stomach knotted. Sarah had vanished years ago. Mara remembered the posters plastered across campus. Another, Michael Ortiz, 14. Another missing kid. She rifled through more, names stacking up like a grim tally, hands shaking. A sudden thud from the lobby jolted her. A heavy drop, like a book hitting the floor. She pocketed an ID and ran back, the gate slamming shut with a hollow bang. At her desk, she punched the names into the university database. Everyone linked to a disappearance. Students lost over decades, cases gone cold. The library's drone shifted, a low rumble pulsing through the walls. Then came the scraping, a slow, deliberate drag across the tile behind her. She spun, flashlight slicing the dark. Empty shadows stared back. Her chair groaned as she sat. And there, on her keyboard, lay a folded note, scrawled in jagged ink. You shouldn't have looked. Her breath caught. No one had come in. The clock struck 2 a.m., and the whispers crept closer, weaving through the stacks. Mara's pulse hammered as she returned to the archives. The hidden door stood ajar, though she'd left it closed. Inside, the shelves were bare. No IDs, just streaks of grime. The sour stench thickened, and her light hit a wet smear on the floor. Ward brown, fresh. She gagged, stepping back, when a shadow flickered across the aisle. Tall, thin, too solid for a trick of light. "Who's there?" she called, voice cracking. Silence, then the tapping. Faint, retreating down the hall. She bolted to the lobby, locking the gate, hands slick with sweat. She checked the front doors, still bolted, but the glass was fogged, streaked with faint smudges like fingers had pressed against it from outside. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Dead, though it had been charged an hour ago. By 3 a.m., the library felt like a cage. The scraping returned, sharper now, drifting from the upper stacks. Mara grabbed a heavy stapler, hair-only defense, and climbed the stairs. The 5th floor was a labyrinth of narrow aisles, the air colder, tighter. She turned a corner and stopped. A figure stood at the far end, back turned, hunched over a cart. A janitor. But the clothes were wrong. Torn, stained dark at the edges. It stayed still, shoulders twitching slightly. She stepped forward. It shuffled off, disappearing behind a shelf. She followed, heart pounding, but found only the cart, empty save for a rusted utility knife, its blade crusted with something dark. The whispers swelled. "Eee!" Mara staggered back, the stapler slipping, clattering loud against the floor. Then the footsteps started below, slow, heavy, climbing the stairs. She ducked into an aisle, breathing shallow as they paused. Silence stretched, broken by a low chuckle rolling through the walls. She ran, tearing down the stairs, the footsteps picking up right behind her. The lobby loomed, and she crashed into the emergency exit, the alarm shrieking as she spilled onto the pavement. Cold air burned her lungs, but she kept running, not stopping until she reached the campus security office. She blurted it all. Whispers, eyes, the figure. The guard dialed the cops, skeptical, but they searched anyway. By dawn, they uncovered it. A false wall in the archives, hiding a janitor's old locker. Inside, student IDs, a coil of rope, a knife with dried blood. Carl Hensley, the janitor, had worked there until '98 when he died in a crash. 6 missing students traced to his years, though no bodies were found. The cops pegged him as a predator, using the library to stash his trophies. Mara's note matched his handwriting from old logs. She quit the next day, moved to Boise. But the library's hold lingered. Her new place stayed quiet, but she'd wake to the scraping, faint, like nails on wood, though the floors were carpeted. Last month, an ID turned up in her mailbox. Sarah Tillman's, the one she'd taken. The photo was scratched out, replaced with Mara in shaky ink. The dead don't run. Dr. Lena Harper repeated this mantra as she scrubbed her hands raw in the morgue sink. The fluorescent lights buzzed like trapped flies. The John Doe on her table had no ID, no fingerprints, and a Y incision waiting to be carved. His file read cause of death, unknown. But Lena knew. She'd seen the faint bruises circling his wrists, the split in his lower lip. A man who'd fought hard before letting go. At 11:47 p.m., the power flickered. The first cut was routine, scalpel to gyphoid process, steel part in cold flesh. The body resisted, rigor mortis lingering like a bad guest. Lena paused when she saw the tattoo, a black spiral nested inside a triangle, peeking from beneath the liver. She'd seen that symbol before, on a missing persons poster, on a cult's manifesto. Her pager vibrated, code blue, 4th floor. She washed her hands, tossed her gloves, and didn't notice the toe tag slip from the body's foot. When she returned 12 minutes later, the table was empty. The tag lay on the floor, smeared with a substance too thick to be blood. Security footage showed nothing, just Lena entering, leaving, and an empty morgue. Prank? Kits? But the halls reeked of formaldehyde and something sweeter. rotting fruit, decay with a smile. At 2:16 a.m., the freezer alarms blared. Lena found every drawer open, bodies shrouded in plastic, frost curling off their faces, except drawer 14. Inside, a single Polaroid, John Doe's tattoo, photographed post-mortem. On the back, in block letters, "You missed the heart." She replayed the autopsy in her head, the liver, the spiral, the way his pupils had dilated under the light, as if still reacting. Her office door creaked. The thermostat plummeted. On her desk, the John Doe's file now listed a name: Ezekiel Voss. Google gave her one hit. A cold case from 1993. 7 men found in a Pennsylvania barn. Their chests carved open, hearts replaced with bouquets of rosemary. The cult symbol matched the tattoo. The lone survivor, Ezekiel Voss, age 9. The lights died. Lena's flashlight revealed words scrawled across the observation window in greasy black residue. "Finish me." In the morgue, the body was back, but now his eyes were open, cloudy, hungry. Lena's scalpel shook as she restarted the incision. The flesh parted easily, too warm. Inside the thoracic cavity, instead of a heart, sat a cassette tape. The voice that crackled through was a child's. "You shouldn't have left me alone, Doctor." The police found her at dawn. Lena's body lay on the autopsy table, wide incision, sutured shut with fishing line. Her own heart rested in a steel tray, still glistening. The toe tag circled her left ankle. The security footage wiped except for one frame. A small boy in a blood-stained sweater, holding Lena's hand as she carved into her chest. The new medical examiner quit after a week. "The freezers," he told HR. They whisper. "Last month, a hiker found 7 rosemary bundles in the Pennsylvania woods. Each cradled a human heart. The youngest, still beating faintly, bore a tattoo, a black spiral, a triangle. And a name, Lena Ezekiel Voss, was never found. But if you visit the morgue at St. Mercy Hospital after midnight, you'll hear it. The sound of a cassette tape clicking on, and a child's voice, giggling, "Your turn." The Quick Stop gas station sat like a lonely beacon off Route 17 in rural Indiana, its neon sign buzzing faintly under a starless sky. Jake Hensley, 29, slouched behind the counter, the clock dragging past 2 a.m. 6 months into the night shift. He knew every creak of this dump. Peeling linoleum, flickering lights, the hum of the coolers. It was a dead-end gig in a dead-end town. But tonight, the air felt thick, pressing against his ribs like a warning. He was wiping down the counter when the knock started. A sharp, steady rapping from the back room. Jake's hand froze, the rag dangling. It came from the steel door marked storage, always padlocked since he'd started. He figured it was just a utility closet, but the knocks were too deliberate, too alive. "Anyone there?" he called, his voice bouncing off the walls. The cooler's hum deepened, a low rumble that set his teeth on edge. Jake snagged the store keys, his boots scuffing across the tile as he approached. The padlock gleamed cold under his flashlight, untouched. He leaned close, ear to the steel, and the knocks hit again, harder, vibrating through his jaw. He jerked back, pulse racing, and flipped through the employee manual. No basement listed, just a basic floor plan. Shop, office, nothing else. The knocks stopped, leaving a silence that prickled his skin. An hour later, restocking cigarettes, he heard a new sound. A slow, drawn-out creak, like wood straining under weight. It came from that damn door. Jake's beam slid across the steel, catching a thin crack at the base. Dust sifting out like fine ash. His gut screamed to ignore it, but the knocks had burrowed into his head. He tested the lock. It didn't budge. Then, a whisper leaked through. "Help me," low. Rough, real. His stomach flipped. Jake lurched back, knocking over a candy display. The whisper dissolved, but his hands wouldn't steady. He called his boss, Ray, voice tight. "Something's up with that door," Ray chuckled. "No basement, just pipes, kid." But Jake wasn't sold. He stuck to the register, eyes glued to the back room. At 4 a.m., the knocks returned. Faster, shaking the door like something wanted out. Dawn came slow and gray. Jake rummaged through the office files. Nothing on a basement, but a yellowed news clipping slipped out. Local man vanishes near Route 17, 2018. Tom Reese last seen here. Jake's throat tightened. He clocked out. But the knocks followed him home, echoing in his skull all day. Next shift, he brought a crowbar. The lot was empty. The sky bruised purple. At midnight, the knocks hit again, relentless. Jake couldn't take it. He wedged the crowbar into the lock, metal screeching as it gave. The door swung open, exhaling a damp, rotten stench. A rickety staircase spiraled down, steps slick with mold. His flashlight trembled, the wood groaning under his weight as he descended. The basement was a concrete pit, walls streaked with filth. Piles of stuff littered the floor. Backpacks, wallets, a cracked phone. Jay kicked a bag open. A driver's license stared up. Tom Reese. His legs wobbled. More bags, more eyes. 7, 8, 9. Names from old missing persons reports. A heavy thump rolled from the corner, and his light caught movement. A shadow shifting behind some crates. He crept closer, breath shallow, and peered around. A man crouched there, thin, unshaven, in a stained jacket. He turned, eyes glinting, gripping a rusted pipe. "You don't belong here," he growled, voice like sandpaper. Jake bolted, the crowbar slipping as he scrambled up the stairs. The man swung, the pipe clanging off the railing, inches from Jake's skull. He burst into the store, slammed the door, and dialed 911, gasping. "Someone's down there." Police flooded the lot in under 20 minutes, lights slicing the dark. They hauled the guy out. Earl Wayne Cobb, a drifter with a string of warrants. The basement held traces of 9 missing people. Wallets, keys, blood-stained shirts. All last seen at the Quick Stop over 15 years. Cobb had been living there, sneaking in through a hidden hatch, picking off late-night loners. The old owner, long dead, had taken bribes to keep it quiet. Jake quit on the spot, moved back to Indianapolis, but the basement wouldn't let go. Last week, a gas receipt showed up in his mailbox, dated that night, scribbled with "Thanks, Jake" in shaky ink. He torched it, but the smell of rot still seeps into his dreams, a reminder of what he let loose. The fluorescent lights in St. Agnes Hospital buzzed like a swarm of restless flies, casting a sterile glow over the 4th floor. Rachel Torres, 27, adjusted her scrubs and checked her watch. True, 17 a.m. she'd been pulling night shifts for a year now, long enough to know the rhythm of this old brick beast in upstate New York. The wheeze of ventilators, the soft beep of monitors, the shuffle of her sneakers on chipped linoleum. But tonight, the air felt thick, like it was hiding something nasty. She was at the nurse's station, sipping burnt coffee, when the intercom crackled. "Rachel, check on room 407. Patients restless." The voice was Nurse Kelly's, clipped and tired. Rachel frowned, flipping through the clipboard. No one was listed for 407. She keyed the intercom. "Kelly, you sure? It's empty tonight." Static hissed back, then silence. The monitor's beeping seemed to slow, a sluggish pulse in the quiet. Rachel grabbed her flashlight, half the hall lights were busted, and headed down the corridor. The air grew colder, sharper, as she neared 407. The door loomed ahead, its chipped paint peeling like dead skin. She pushed it open, hinges groaning low and long, and stepped inside. The bed was empty, sheets crisp and untouched, the room silent except for a faint dripping, water leaking from the sink, steady as a heartbeat. She checked the chart on the wall. Blank. No patient, no record. Back at the station. She radioed Kelly again. Room 407's clear. Who called it in? Kelly's voice came through, puzzled. I didn't. Must have been a mix-up. Rachel's skin prickled. She glanced down the hall. The light above 407 flickered, a weak pulse against the dark. Then came the tapping. Soft, rhythmic, like fingers on glass, drifting from that room. She froze, coffee mug trembling in her hand. An hour later, charting vitals, she heard it again. The tapping, louder, insistent. She marched back, flashlight beam slicing the shadows. The door to 407 was ajar now, though she'd shut it tight. Inside, the bed was still empty, but the sink dripped faster, water pooling on the floor, dark and oily. A sour smell hit her, like sweat and antiseptic gone bad. She stepped closer, and the tapping stopped, replaced by a low hum vibrating through the walls. Morning rounds brought Dr. Hargrove, a gray-haired relic who'd worked here since the 80s. Rachel cornered him at the coffee machine. What's with 407? What's with 407? I got a call to check it, but it's empty. Hargrove's hands stilled, his eyes narrowing. That room's been closed since '92. Patient vanished. David Reese, 34. Admitted for a broken leg, gone by morning. No trace. Cops searched for weeks. Figured he just walked out. We sealed it after that. He turned away, but not before muttering. Should be calls from there. Rachel's stomach twisted. She dug through old files in the break room, finding a faded report. Reese missing. Last seen in 407. No leads, case cold. That night, the tapping returned, sharper, like nails on a window pane. She stormed to 407, the door creaking open on its own. The bed was still bare, but a wet smear streaked the floor. Ward brown, fresh. Her flashlight caught a shadow darting past the window. Outside, 4 stories up. She called security, voice shaking. Something's in 407. 2 guards swept the room. Nothing but the smear, which they chalked up to a leak. But as they left, the humming swelled, a deep drone rattling her teeth. Rachel stayed put, watching the door. At 4 a.m., a new sound. The scraping, slow and deliberate, like metal dragging on tile, echoing from inside. She edged closer, peering through the crack. A figure stood by the bed, tall, hunched, back turned, in a stained hospital gown. "Sir," she whispered. It turned, face shadowed, and shuffled toward her, the scraping following its steps. Rachel slammed the door, heart hammering, and ran to the station. The intercom buzzed. Kelly's voice. "Rachel, 407 again." She snapped. No one's there. But the line went dead, and the humming pulsed louder, shaking the floor. By 5 a.m., she was a wreck, pacing the hall. The lights above 407 died, plunging it into black. She grabbed a scalpel from a supply cart, knuckles white, and crept back. The door hung open, the room ice cold. The bed was empty, but a chart now hung on the wall. Hers. Rachel Torres admitted. Tonight, a photo stared back, eyes scratched out with ink. The scraping erupted behind her and she spun. A man loomed in the doorway, gaunt, in a gown, his face a mess of scars. She swung the scalpel, slicing air as he lunged. She bolted. The footsteps, slapping the tile behind her. The hall stretched, lights strobing, until she hit the stairwell, tumbling down a flight. She scrambled up, blood trickling from her elbow, and made it to the ER, screaming for help. Security tackled the guy. John Doe, no ID, ranting about keeping them safe. Cops linked him to Reese's case, a hospital orderly fired in '92. suspected of drugging patients, hiding them. No bodies, just rumors of a locked room. Rachel took leave, moved to Albany, but 407 clung to her. She'd hear the tapping on her apartment walls. Faint, patient, though they were brick. Last week, a patient file slid under her door. David Reese, room 407. With a note in shaky ink. You left me. She shredded it. But the dripping, slow, steady, still wakes her, leaking from nowhere.